Moving from an opposition party to a governing party comes with growing pains. And, well, we're feeling those growing pains today.
Rookie's error, Donald Trump. You may be a great negotiator. Rookie's error for bringing this up on a day when clearly you're not ready.
Speaker Paul Ryan taking his licks, and House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi taking a bow over the defeat of the GOP's plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. And it's time now for our Sunday group. Bill Kristol from the Weekly Standard. And Bill, welcome back.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be here.
We've missed you. Charles Lane of the Washington Post. Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today. And former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Speaker, let me start with you. What went wrong? What should President Trump and his team do differently next time? And what about Speaker Paul Ryan?
Well, look, Ryan's a brilliant policy guy. This is his first really big effort to put together a legislative package. I hope that this will be a moment in the Trump presidency when they realize that they can't win an inside game. Trump's great strength is in the country, as Reagan's great strength was in the country. It took Reagan until August to pass a tax cut, which is a pretty easy thing. It took us until August of '96 to pass welfare reform, which is a relatively easy thing. First ground rule is simple. Don't set up an artificial deadline to fail. The second ground rule is equally simple. Start with the country understanding what you're doing, and then try to do it in Washington. But they're here with the fake score from CBO and the absurdity of the Senate reconciliation bills, trying to explain a process that is hopelessly complicated to the average American, and then saying in the age of Donald Trump, trust us, we're going to fix it all in the second and third phases. It was just profoundly misdesigned. And
is there one person you blame for it?
No, I think the congressional leadership still wants to behave as though they're in a pre-Trump world, and I think Trump, frankly, trusted them. And up until about 5 days out, they kept telling him they had the votes.
We asked you for questions for the panel, and we got a number on this question of the first big defeat for the Trump presidency. Kevin Henderson tweeted, the congressional GOP had 6 years to come up with a decent alternative. What were they doing that whole time? And Michael Lodge sent this on Facebook. Why do you think the American people will accept failure of not repealing and replace Obamacare after 8 years of telling us they would? Bill, how do you answer those questions, and who do you think is responsible for this failure?
They'll have to revisit reforming and repealing parts, at least, of Obamacare over the next year and a half. There's plenty of time, as Newt said. I do think just going for some huge comprehensive bill on the toughest thing to tackle, something that the Clinton administration didn't succeed with in '93, '94. They never got even a vote on their health care bill, and that Barack Obama took 15 months of arm twisting with bigger majorities to get through. To begin with, that was a little crazy. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit he could do, some of it bipartisan. I thought Ryan's preface was interesting in his talk with you. They could do some stuff that some conservatives won't like and get Democrats on board of, bringing some prescription drug prices down. If I were Trump now, I would do some easy things. There's a continuing resolution in a month. Say, I want the wall funded now, in 2017, not 2018. I'm not a big fan of the wall, but if you're a Trump voter, you like the wall, right? I want the defense supplemental now. I'm building back the military. He has 3 or 4 things he could do over the next month if he pivots away from this, which will be medium-sized victories for him, which is what you can get in the first 100 days.
Let's talk about the other big story this week, and that was the continuing investigation into alleged ties between Russia and the Trump campaign. And there's also the question of the surveillance of the Trump team and whether there was an effort to surveil and to leak this information to undercut the Trump presidency. One of the big developments this week was that the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, rushed to the White House to brief the president. Here he is.
What I've read bothers me, and I think it should bother the president himself and his team.
The chairman will need to decide whether he is the chairman of an independent investigation into conduct which includes allegations of potential coordination between the Trump campaign and the Russians, or he is going to act as a surrogate of the White House.
Chuck, did Nunes make a mistake going to the White House, briefing the president before he briefed his own committee? And does this open the door? And this is a question I asked Reince Priebus. Does this open the door and increase the demand for an independent investigation?
Well, on the second part of your question, obviously it's increasing the demand for an independent investigation, both in the media and elsewhere on Capitol. If I'm not mistaken, I think John McCain piped up about that again this week. And for good reason, that here you have a House body, obviously, whose chairman feels it's his duty, you know, the minute some new development takes place in the middle of their investigation, to run over to the target, in effect, of the investigation and tell them what's going on. On the point about whether or not it's a mistake, I guess it depends on what his goal was. If his goal was to remain in good graces with the Trump administration, it was probably a very successful venture on his part, but it doesn't seem, to me at least, consistent with sort of separation of powers 101. And politically, I think it obviously has backfired on him.
Susan.
Well, you do have Democrats calling for an independent commission or a special counsel, but you don't really see anybody in the Republican leadership going that way. And it seems to me you need some explosive new disclosure to really propel an independent investigation beyond. I mean, now I think Democrats will focus more on the Senate Intelligence Committee that has not had the kind of partisan breach that we saw this week on the House Intelligence Committee. And of course, the FBI investigation is going to continue no matter what. So this is going to be an issue that we know from Monday's testimony, just on Monday, it seems like so long ago, just on Monday from the FBI director, that this is going to be what the chairman called a big gray cloud over the Trump administration for at least months.
Mr. Speaker, I want to give you a thought experiment. Assume that Adam Schiff, the ranking Democrat, was the chairman of the committee, and he raced to the White House to tell President Obama about some information he had gotten on Benghazi, let's say, before he told his committee. Wouldn't you have been among the first people to cry foul on that?
We would have been deeply shocked, horrified, and called for an independent commission.
Meaning what? That this is just rounding up the usual suspects?
Meaning he did his job as a partisan, and we would have done our job as a partisan.
Yeah, but
It's a failure, don't you think, Newt? I mean, this is what Paul Ryan was talking about, being a governing party. He is chairman of the committee. He has a pretty good staff in that committee. He can actually investigate these things. It seems ridiculous for the chairman of the committee. It's one thing for a backbencher in a minority to say, I have no recourse, I'm having a press conference, I'm going to go tell people and scream and yell. He's chairman. He could actually investigate this. Why is he running to the White House?
The standard is not what your average partisan would do.
No.
That's not our standard.
Look, the fact is, this whole thing is so overblown, and I think what Nunes was saying to Trump, which the media doesn't want to accept, is that, in fact, he has some reason to believe they were under surveillance. Now, Trump got he got pounded on by the media for weeks, and all of a sudden Nunes says, wait a second, what if it turns out he was right? Well, I think he probably was stunned at the idea that after all of this lynch mob mentality in the media, it may well turn out Donald J. Trump is right and everybody in the establishment's wrong. And I think that's why he went up to see him.
And again, this is not all about, at least from the point of view of what good governance and what the American people need, it's not sort of like what proves the establishment wrong or right in the course of one 24-hour news cycle. He's supposedly the chairman of a committee doing a serious investigation.
The news media is willing to prove Donald Trump wrong within a half hour. So don't talk to me about 24-hour news cycles.
But we're the news media. That guy has an oath. He's
Hey guys,
the chairman of a committee.
I'm not going to talk to you about 24 hours or 20 minutes. I am talking about a commercial, though. Thank you. We'll see you Sunday.